This is Warbird Radio.
On this episode of Warbird Radio, we're checking in with the chief pilot from the Liberty Foundation, Ray Fowler. He joins us now from his home in Georgia with news on the latest acquisition for the Liberty Foundation. Ray, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Matt.
Talk to us about this B-25 executive suite that has come to call the Liberty Foundation home.
Well, this is really great news for us. Executive Suite's been West Coast based for over 50 years. It's lived with the AAF, and those guys toured it pretty much all over. So being from the East Coast, I'd been out there with those folks a few times and flown with them doing some of their flight checks. And when COVID hit, money got tight, just like with all the small museums, and they ended up having to look for a new home. So quite a few other museums, bigger museums, made the pitch for it to go to a new place. And we did the same for Liberty. And I think just our story with the loss of Liberty Bell kind of resonated with those folks that, maybe we'd be the best home for it. So we were thrilled to get it. And now it's been kind of a long road. We actually did the acquisition back in 2020, but we're just now getting the airplane to where we can announce that we're going to put it on tour, and we've had a lot of work we've had to do to get it to where it is today.
Let's talk about the landscape right now for touring Warbirds, because a lot has changed. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. But where do you see it right now?
Well, I think where most people do, it's kind of certainly up in the air. We used to do over 40 cities when we had the B-17 flying, and of course, just everybody knows with the economy, it's so up in the air, given the fact nobody can afford to reach into their own pocket and pay, $6-7 a gallon avgas. So it does hurt. I think everybody's modified their model a little bit, and I think we're going to do the same. We're going to kind of rely on some of the air events to help get it between A and B, but it's just very difficult to fund going to a city completely with all the gas, the hotels, the airfare. I mean, everything we've done in the past, but that's still kind of our model. And we think that's the best way to show it to the public, is to kind of barnstorm, just like, so many people have done over the past, 25, 30 years.
Well, it certainly has worked in the past, and I wish you the best of luck in the future. Let's talk about future homes, though, because there's been a lot of discussion about this. Where is the Liberty Foundation planning to keep this airplane, and is there plans for maybe a museum or a permanent home for all of the airplanes? Because I know you've got, we'll talk about this in a second, the B-17 coming back. So let's dive into this.
Sure. Well, we're in Douglas, Georgia, and that's where Don Brooks, the founder of Liberty Foundation, has been. That's where the bulk of the restoration on the B-17 is being done. We are kind of looking for a new home. We have for some time. So in our heyday of touring, we actually would start every other year on the West Coast. It just strategically was a better plan for us to have the airplane already in position to start touring. So we've always really enjoyed having a quasi home, which we kind of would just find a place to put the airplane over the winter and do the winter maintenance. But since the executive suite was based on the West Coast, we really wanted to keep the airplane out there anyway. It's kind of, where people recognized it also for the members of the AAF that used to, come out and enjoy and play with the airplane. It was based in Camarillo. And, quite frankly, we would have probably kept the airplane there, for the next bunch of years. The CAF is based there. They have a B-25. It just wasn't ideal to be there. So we're looking for a West Coast place to base the airplane. There's quite a few options out there also. So not super convenient for me and for several of the people that, fly. But, since, in theory, we'll only have it there over the winter, and then we'll have it out on the road from there, since we've always been kind of homeless anyway, more like carnies flying around the country. So it would be so nice to have the airplane in a place to where people can walk in and see it and enjoy it. So we're looking at a few places, and I think if a couple of these pans out, we're going to have like a wonderful home that's West Coast or West Coast space-ish, to have the airplane when it's not on tour.
And is that both? Are you thinking all of the assets that the foundation has, or are you thinking just the B-25 right now? out west?
Well, man, undetermined. I think all of them would be amazing to have there, just because, again, it's so difficult to raise money, when you're just going stop to stop. But when you have a home and people can come in and see what you have, it's a little better, a little easier. But it's still so tough, to be a small museum. I think, unfortunately, I think you're going to see more and more of the smaller museums that kind of like Liberty struggling, because it's just, we had such a great number of people that flew with us. I mean, gosh, I don't know how many millions of people went through Liberty Bell, and certainly we flew tens of thousands of people that it made it a little easier for them to make small donations to keep the airplanes flying. But when they're not kind of in front of you, it's hard to ask people for money. But so I don't know. It's I sure would like to keep everything here in Georgia, just since I live in Georgia. It's pretty convenient to go fly the C-47 and the B-17 you mentioned. It is making amazing progress. So like everything, it's 90% done and 90% to go as far as the re-restoration of the Liberty Bell. But it will fly again, and I'm excited about that. But if we align ourselves, I mean, there's quite a few other folks that have quite a number of Warbirds that really want to put them with the Liberty Foundation to display. So just got to find out where's the best place to go. Yeah.
Well, the West Coast, certainly a great home for Executive Suite, which, by the way, has been, sort of rehabbed, repainted, and we saw down in Lake Charles down there at that wonderful facility. And it looked like Chad Hill out there working on it with Django Studios, and Chad does amazing work. I mean, he's really picked up the torch over the last few years, and he's run with it, putting himself out there now, not only just doing artwork, but also painting on airplanes. And what a guy to be able to do that.
Oh, Chad's amazing. He's one of those amazing finds. I mean, I was kidding the other day if I could kidnap him and chain him into the basement and just have him do work for us. He is so talented. So the airplane, like I said, I can't believe, of course, post-COVID, everything seems to be like in different time-space continuum for, how long it's taken. So I can't believe we're already going into 24. But when we got the airplane, I mean, it was pretty turnkey. It was certainly flying, and we got it. We decided to kind of do a deep dive and go through all the airplane systems, and it really ended up having to do quite a bit to the plane. And the biggest issue was the fuel tanks, and so that took quite a long time. But in the interim, it was very nice. Delta Airlines and Landlocked Aviation in Lake Charles both put together a full sponsorship to repaint the plane. So we wanted to pick a new paint scheme, and we kind of looked around to what would be a great representation for the airplane. The Executive Suite airplane was kind of a mixture of different squadrons. So this will be a little more pure of a paint scheme with an MTO paint, but it is the nose art. Chad came up with that, and he just finished it just a few days ago. So you're really the first to hear of it. We're going to kind of trickle out the pictures and put the release out for the nose art, but it's still Executive Suite. It'll stay Executive Suite, and it is just amazing what Chad does. And we've been pretty blessed. We have multiple people that are talented artists that really wanted to do the nose art, including the guy that does our website, John Thoreau. He's actually did the last nose art that was on Executive Suite, and they're both those guys are so talented. But we're just thrilled Chad came out. He spent, about 8 days doing this, doing the work that's on it now. So we hope everybody loves it as much as I do.
We're talking to Ray Fowler today. He's the chief pilot for the Liberty Foundation. We're going to take a quick break, Ray. When we come back, I want to talk museums and I want to talk strategy, because a lot of folks who listen to this show, they're just like you. They're deeply, deeply involved with organizations. So let's get into this a little bit more when we come back right after this.
This is Warbird Radio. Reminding you that radio engines don't leak oil. They just mark their territory. This is Warbird Radio. Tune in. Take off.
We're talking to Ray Fowler today. He's the chief pilot for the Liberty Foundation. And I want to get into the museum discussion a little bit more, because as you were talking in the first half of this show, Ray, it's tough out there for small museums to operate. You guys are not really a small museum by assets. I mean, you've got the C-47, the B-17, the B-25, and all the other stuff that I've left out. But you are still considered by, if you will, facilities standards, a small museum. I mean, you're homeless. You move around the country with these barnstorming airplanes and largely volunteer-based. What's your advice for folks that are in the same situation right now, struggling in not only this economy, but sort of the predicted future here for the next few years?
Well, I would say, I mean, we've been so blessed to have Don Brooks, our founder, that started Liberty Foundation. I know you know the story, but, Don's father was a tail gunner in a B-17. And, one of the reasons I take so much time away doing what I do for Liberty and all the volunteers do for Liberty is really for Don, because everything he does is for aviation. I mean, he doesn't ask for a thing to come back. And, over many years, every shortfall we have, Don has to reach into his pocket and pick up the slack on what we don't make to fund the airplanes, which, quite frankly, it's a lot of aggravation for Don to keep the airplanes flying, but he's always done it. And, all the way back from before I knew him, when he did the Greenland expedition to bring the P-38 out of the Greenland ice cap. So for the other museums, I mean, since I get to go do some of the training and do several of the flight checks as one of the examiners, I get to see a lot of museums, big and small. And, it's just fascinating to see, all of this works just because of the people. And, we've had some key people that have been with us since we really started touring in 2004. So, we're on a very small scale, but we do have a lot of members, and we just, again, we need a whole lot of people that don't mind coming out and, providing their time and talent to help us keep going, not just from flying. But I think one of the biggest issues we're going to have is in the maintenance world, because there's just fewer and fewer of the younger generation that likes, coming out and getting their hands dirty. And quite frankly, it's a chore just to uncowl a Warbird and do work. And I'm hoping that, more and more people that come up want to, learn and keep the airplane supported on not just the flying, but the maintenance and everything that goes with it. So I wish I had that crystal ball that, to see, that we're going to just always see Warbirds flying around. But there's just so many challenges, not just, we mentioned the fuel price, but the value of the airplanes. Like a classic car, you can't pull that thing out of your garage anymore and, necessarily go drive it around because it's so valuable. Well, that's what's happening with the Warbirds. The whole values are getting way up there. And if you're not, you don't have somebody truly behind you financially as kind of an angel investor, you run a risk of, wrecking your really nice airplane for whatever reason and not being, financially sound enough to get it back flying. So I don't know. I just, it's like anything else. There's hundreds of museums out there that are all vying for your attention, and some do it really, really well and raise a lot of money, and some struggle. I think we're kind of on the struggle.
Struggle bus with everybody else.
Yeah,
I want to get into this because it's not all doom and gloom. If you like working on these things, if you are dreaming of being a Warbird pilot, I have said for over a decade now that if you just show up, good things happen. Were you born with a giant trust fund, Ray, to get to fly all of these airplanes? Let's just rewind.
Well, I wish I was. That would have been ideal.
So you showed up, and opportunities happened.
And it was just, I tell everybody it's my training, training skill as a pilot, and that's the only reason I got to fly these airplanes, but that's just a lie. I was just a young flight instructor. I mean, this is well before I went in the military. I ended up, meeting Mike Conley, which he's still alive and well in his 80s. He owned a Japanese Kate torpedo bomber and lost his medical. So he needed somebody to make him legal to fly his airplane. And I had a tailwheel endorsement and a high performance sign off, and I was able to jump in that Japanese Kate, which they made for the movie studios, Tora. And so, I just right place, the right time, and got a bunch of heavy tailwheel time,
And this is the one that Alan Armstrong still owns.
That is the same airplane. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And Mike still lives South Atlanta and Griffin, and then at that point, just met Steve Collins. Steve had the P-51 Old Boy and started flying his T-6, and then he offered me the ability to fly the P-51 at a very young age. So Yeah, at one time, I think I was trying to get enough gas to get in my car to get to the airport to go fly off in a P-51. So,
But
it
it's
was
possible. I
definitely.
mean, and that story is still so true. And when you talk about rising cost of hulls and insurance and having these angel donors, are you seeing the trend that I mean, I think it's a trend now that most of these Warbird owners, the vast majority of them, really don't fly their own airplanes anymore.
There is quite a bit of that, and there it's such a small community. I mean, now people kind of know who has the qualifications to just go climb in and move an airplane, but we do need the young folks to step up and the issue is everybody wants to fly them. I mean, they are unbelievably cool, but there's the flying is such a small component, as not only showing up, but the people that come out and stand out in the sun and help sell hats and T-shirts and clean on the plane and help with everything else. I mean, I remember back when I was young, sometimes you'd have to go do the lowest end job for some of these touring airplanes. I mean, I flew for Collins Foundation, I flew for EAA. You would end up doing a lot of very mundane, not so fun jobs to get yourself to a flying seat. And that still stands today. I mean, we don't really want the prima donnas, and Liberty is so fortunate. We don't really have the egos. We don't have the people that are out there, kissing babies and signing autographs. I mean, we truly have folks that are out there trying to support the planes. And that goes a long way when it comes to saying, hey, I think we want to move them to the right seat of the B-25 or type rate them in C-47 or B-25, once they get the time, because a lot of qualified people that want to learn to do it, but it's, pretty expensive.
Yeah. But for the folks that are listening to this right now, I mean, if you want to be the next Bernie, you got to learn how to work on the airplane and then learn how to fly it. The flying will come if you just keep showing up, especially if you can work on it. Look at guys like Austin that are right out here in Carrollton with us. I mean, there's a young guy, and you mentioned the service. He is joined the Air Force, obviously, and learned how to work on airplanes. But he's doing it every chance he can get on the old ones. And so there's a path. The point of this is there is a path. If you want to get involved with the Liberty Foundation, if you want to get involved with your local museum, there is a path to do this, and it doesn't require you to be born with a large amount of money just waiting for you to go and spend. If you have the qualifications, even if you don't, if you just keep showing up like Ray's talking about, there is a path to this. Ray, what are you flying right now in addition to the B-25 and everything else that you've got with the Liberty Foundation? What's keeping you busy?
Delta Airlines is keeping me busy. Actually,
you say that, but I mean, I can count on one hand, I think, the number of times I've called you and you're on a trip.
I try to avoid that. Unfortunately, it's Delta that actually pays me money to fly an airplane, so it's so hard to pay the bills. My wife also flies as a pilot for Delta, Melissa, so it helps to have her out here. I make her go work so I can go play more. But I'm on a trip with Delta this evening.
All right.
But whatever I can grab as far as I just came back from flying a Carbon Cub and a Turbine Mall out west for an entire week, which is unbelievable to do the backcountry flying through Monument Valley. And, shoot, me, I'll fly anything. But you mentioned Austin. I tell you, those guys in Carrollton, Austin, John Davis, which has the maintenance shop out there, is incredible. I mean, they kind of drop everything. Same thing, their business is working on airplanes, and they drop everything and spend days at a time working on the C-47, and they really don't ask anything from it for all those guys. So, man, if it wasn't for that, I've always been so jealous of certain groups, the CEF and Commemorative Air Force, with Air Base Georgia. I mean, they got all these organizations have such great people, and they come out there and spend their entire days away from their families and away from their real jobs to keep airplanes flying. So, Liberty Foundation needs more of that.
Well, Georgia's an odd place. We have so many pilots. We have so many airstrips. It's kind of like Wichita when you live around here. There's an airport on every street corner. There's one a mile and a half from where I'm talking to you at right now. You live on one that's about 2 miles from where our studio is. But there's this huge population that flies because we have the world's largest airport here in Georgia at Hartsfield. But there's not really outside of that. there's not a lot that goes on here. People have airplanes. There's airplanes moving. There's all this stuff that's happening here, but there's not outside of the CAF, really, a thriving, someone's going to come at me for saying this, a thriving flying museum in the state.
I agree with that. It is so difficult just because, I mean, when you have the like the CF, I mean, location is everything for people to come out and spend time with the airplanes. Again, we've always kind of hoped that eventually we'd have somebody come in that would be an angel investor that would come in and give us a really large check to build a facility around. But it's just so hard to find these days. There's certainly a lot of people out there that have built unbelievable museums in the country that are super well funded that I go to, and I'm just wishing I lived like 10 miles from that museum so I could just stroll in every day and go fly their cool airplanes. But Georgia's a bit of an anomaly. You think with Delta being here as big as it is and the aviation community, it'd be big. But you're right. I love living on the grass strip here, and everybody just kind of keeps to themselves. But
and it just gets done here. That's the thing about it. I mean, it's where I live. We're right on the flight, path, not only from Atlanta, but also into Carrollton there. And there's all kind of stuff. I mean, the Beach 18s and I'm not going to name names. I think you've flown over in the Mustang, not even know.
Sure.
But there's all kinds of activity here. And it's just an odd state in that there's not more, I guess you could say, organized activity, just a bunch of cowboys that seem to fly cool stuff. And it's great. And I love it. But and I think that's the song of a lot of areas. There's a lot of people that are involved in this, and my point to you, if you're listening right now, is just get involved at any level, and who knows, you might wind up like Ray Fowler. And as I like to say, it's always a good day to be Ray Fowler.
So far, I mean, I'm very blessed, and like you said, some of the small museums like Liberty gives people the ability to play with airplanes they otherwise couldn't. A lot of the rich guys over the years, they kind of have their toy collection and they keep them behind the hangar door and nobody gets to play. So, get involved with any of that. And of course, from, my public service announcement for anything in aviation, one of my sons is down at Middle Georgia. I mean, he was set up to go to Georgia Tech, and he's at Middle Georgia going through the flight program because he wants to fly airplanes. And, man, it is what a great climate to be in, to want to fly airplanes as a young person. I mean, it's people are going to throw airplanes at you professionally, which is pretty exciting. I mean, I wish I was, 18, 19 years old again, trying to get a flying job like I was.
Yeah, you wouldn't be starving to death today. I'll tell you that. Stupid money. That is a fact. It's a great time to be involved with aviation. How can folks find you in the Liberty Foundation, Ray? Give them the address. LibertyFoundation.org is the website, and we're on most of the social media platforms as well. But if somebody's into programming, they want to come help, do anything for us, we need people to help plus us up and get the word out there of what we're doing. But the website's great. Fran Hess, John Hess, they kind of help us run everything. Also here local, that we'll put you on the path if you want to come out and help us with airplanes. I think it's great. Ray Fowler, the chief pilot for the Liberty Foundation. Thanks for coming on Warbird Radio. It's always great to hear your voice, sir. Thank you, Matt. We'll talk to you soon. If you like Warbird Radio, please follow, share, subscribe, whatever you'd want to do. We're on YouTube. We're on all of the major podcast platforms, so sign up today, join the newsletter, join the fun. We'll talk to you next time right here on your home for the latest and greatest in vintage military aviation news. Warbird Radio, glad you're here.
Lock and load. This is Warbird Radio. Tune in. Take off.